So, hey everyone, I have a very special guest. All my guests are special, but this woman is extremely special. This is Tia McCoun, and she is with Caregiver Solutions. Hi, Tia, how are you?
Hi, Shelby. Thanks so much for having me join you today. I'm
Oh,
so excited.
absolutely. You know what, Tia, you do so many different amazing things for people that I wish I'd had you on sooner. But I'm glad that you got rid of your shyness and decided to do this with me today. So, Tia, I've known you for a couple years now, and you, like I said, you do a lot of wonderful things for a lot of wonderful people and some difficult things. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Tia is, what Caregiver Solutions is, and you've got a bunch of other hats that you wear as well. So take it away, Tia.
Thank you. Well, I'm Tia, and I started a company called the Boots and Wings Project, Caregiver Solutions and Resources. So how I got there, to answer your first question, is that as early as I was 10 years old, I remember going to the hospital with my mom and seeing what she went through as a caregiver. But I also would walk down the street and I would take care of my pop-up. And so it's kind of, I think my caregiver journey started there. My passion and my devotion and my love for all the things that caregivers have to endure started there. And later on, it was Aunt Margaret and Uncle Horace who really didn't have children to take care of them. And my mom and I supported them, and my dad did too in different ways. And it was just, I went into ministry and I started doing home visitations and beginning to just see that side of things. And, you know, fast forward, ended up taking care of my own mother who had a cancer journey and ending up in hospice chaplaincy. So that whole thing brings me right up to 2018. Around 2003, I started thinking about what caregivers need and articulating a desire. And this has become a mission for me. In 2018, I opened the company, promptly had my own health event. So I had to put things on hold. 2019 got going again. Here comes COVID. So third time's the charm. But during that time, some amazing things happened, and I'm really eager to share those stories with you.
I am eager to have you share them. So go ahead and start off.
Yeah. So one of the things that I did as a caregiver was the way I organized my information so that I could keep track of people, places, and things that were happening. It's a really, really overwhelming time for caregivers. And so from the conceptual side right now, what we do is if you think about the weather, you plan for the weather, right? You go and get an umbrella. If there's a storm, you board up the house. But with caregiving, I say we live in the land of later on, or everything's fine. And we need to be more proactive as caregivers and be more communicative with the people around us. And especially now, people are not always aware that we have a caregiver crisis. There's a national nursing shortage, not because of employees, but because there's more boomers that are hitting the system. And so that means that the burden is on families even more. Also, the caregivers, there are caregivers who left the caregiving role due to recovery issues or personal other things that have gone on in their lives. So we have this need to help first responders and nurses and community staff people trying to help by being more proactive as caregivers. So I began putting together this tool and teaching people how to organize their information and what resources are out there and where to go because they don't know. And just today, I have to tell you, I've had a couple people come back, but just today, right before this podcast, a woman who was by herself in Abington. The police had asked me to come and talk to her and work with her on her particular issues. She has a number of people in the community who are helping her, but I put this tool in her house. It's we call it the Grab and Go book, and we put it in her house. And today, one of the nonprofits in the community that work with her, that I helped to coordinate the people in that community around her, called me and said, the EMTs came, They grabbed the book, they pulled
Oh,
out the information that they needed, and they gave it to him. Now, this is a year and a half later,
that's
so it
awesome.
wasn't even current. But this grab and go book, it's a communication tool that we use to not only organize caregivers and educate them, but then the second and even maybe more important thing is it gets the information into the fingertips of the lifesavers in the emergency rooms and the EMTs right away, so they
Right.
don't have to. So that was the first great story. And it was a year and a half later. Another story of an example of how this resource works is that the Veterans Administration, they have this wonderful collaborative that they discuss, the how to support the different people in the community that are in their circle and their trusted networks. And I'm a part of those discussions as well. And I got referred to another veteran and their caregiver. The caregiver is now part of an HOA, and she was so appreciative of this tool to help organize this veteran who was by himself, that she has now, just in the last 2 weeks, asked me to provide 150 copies to every member in their community.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Right. So which brings me to the other side of that same coin. Caregivers are financially fragile. They're hardworking. They leave work to take care of people. They're part of the backbone of the middle class economy. And they're really loyal and they really struggle between work and caring. And so what we're trying to do is make these caregiving books available through sponsorships and to have small businesses in that community, in those zip codes, be able to get the information into the hands of the people through this tool uh, right away so that they don't have to worry about that. So my slogan for the day is, sponsor care, not frisbees.
I love it. I love it. So I know one of the things that you had talked about was you're doing kind of like a, a group counseling session for caregivers that are maybe distraught and overwhelmed and tired themselves. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there? Because
Yeah.
I know a lot of caregivers that are taking care of their parents, and it especially this past year. I mean, there's been a lot of emotion in regards to what's been happening and with elderly and their health.
Yeah. And so this is one of the things that happens. There's so many individual scenarios, as many as, there are people. So we try to guide folks through, okay, what can you expect in terms of the system? So we help them navigate. And there's different ways that we teach caregivers. One is that we just have tips. So you can go onto the website, you can, for $1 a month, sign up for tips and maybe get some information that either you didn't know or that you may need later. And just their weekly tips, there's 52. So it might teach you about a form that you can get from the Department of Health, or what is an ADL, or how do you, what are the resources around medication management? Who do you go to for that kind of information? What's the difference between an RN and a BSN? What can they, can't they do? So there's tips, but then there's also the classes. And I have a whole series of different classes with people who are in the community working with caregivers, but also, the classes that I offer. And of course, that book and those resources is frequently either the structure of the class or it's the class itself. So depending on the needs of the people that are coming, there are classes on there that you can sign up for now, like what to do if you're a caregiver at a distance, how to build your wraparound team. We have an attorney from both New Jersey and Pennsylvania who's written a book on stewardship for older people. And, so we have all these different, we have a cancer coach, somebody from JDRF, there's all kinds of ways that we're tying in the education. So there's that. But again, that book again is probably the number one piece that in all of the classes, some aspect of that grab and go book will be presented, because right now it is a life-saving, time-saving, money-saving tool, but not only for the caregivers and their families, but also to really support the first responders and the nursing staff who are so terribly, terribly overburdened right now. So.
It's fantastic. So let me ask you, tell us about Boots and Wings.
Oh, okay. Well, so first of all, it's called a project because this is something we're in a caregiver crisis. There's at the national level, we're talking about the caregiver cliff. It's, when there's so many people that are going to need care, we're still working on how we're going to fill that gap. So the Boots and Wings project is one of those things that it's boots on the ground to build an army of compassionate people. And then the wings part is, but that we have hope when we're working together towards some of these bigger things that seem insurmountable, but they are in fact not. So.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that project because it's something that I know is near and dear to your heart.
Yes, it is. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, absolutely. So let me ask you, is there a certain area that you're geographically tied to in order to help caregivers? Or did you learn in 2020 when we went virtual that you're pretty much able to help anyone, anywhere?
Anyone, anywhere. Anyone, anywhere, absolutely. This is a national issue, and the more people that we can educate in specific communities, then the more those communities can begin to share that information. And it's especially those nonprofit organizations that are doing the direct support, working with the youth, like at the Drop and things like that. It's just that it's amazing. But there are so many ways that caregiving gaps present themselves that as long as we know about them, we can kind of find your way. I have a knowledge library that spans every state, and it's been building for 20 years. I've been collecting. So
Wow.
I've been following this issue for many, many years and have decided to act on it now.
I think it's phenomenal that you are. So Tia, let me, before I wrap up, I always finish with, is there something I should have asked you that I didn't ask you that you'd like to tell us? Did I miss anything?
Just the way to reach me is.
Yep, we're going to do that. Absolutely. So what is your website, your email? What's the best way to reach you if someone needs help or has questions?
So you can go to soulutionsforcaregivers.com, which is SOUL-UTIONS for caregivers.com. Or you can email me directly at answersforcaregivers@gmail.com, or you can pick up the phone and call me. I love to talk to people and hear their stories and support them. So that's 287 or 382-287-8661.
Tia, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Guys, I can tell you, like I said, I've known Tia for a few years now, and I've watched what you've done, and I've seen some of the roadblocks that you've hit, and then you just keep coming back, and this is something that you're extremely passionate about. You do feel for those caregivers, and you want to give them those solutions and give them that comfort. And you're such a kind soul, Tia. You really are. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. And guys, I will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.